Hi, welcome to our third podcast. I have with me today Gerald Martin, retired Hartford principal. So welcome to our podcast. We're so glad that you're here.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll start off with, were you a student athlete in high school, and what sports did you play? And were you a naturally good student while you were in high school? Did you have some challenges along the way?
Are we actually doing it now?
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
We're ready to do it.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, let's go. So, as far as being a good student in the sense of academic, I was in an academic program, not honors program, and it was a tough situation. Carrying all the subjects. I also not just did the subjects, but I played sports and worked.
Oh, okay.
So I worked in Parks and Rec. So my school day was that, the school day ended. I played sports with basketball, and then finally I had an incident playing football. So I had fractured ankles, so I was away from football for a while, and then I went into track. But at 6 o'clock, I had to report to Parks and Rec, 6 to 9 to work.
Wow, and then have to do it all over again the next day.
Then I go home to do my homework. So it was that kind of situation that the school day, I was up to like 12 o'clock at least every night doing homework.
Yeah.
We were required, particularly in math, which I finally majored in. But it was that kind of daily stuff that you had to do. And then weekends, of course, were kind of absorbed. But I remember, every day getting home and spending that time and trying to get in. And I did run across a pretty nice gentleman, Paul Lippman, who actually allowed me when I went to work to do some of my homework there.
Wow, that was nice.
Yeah, he did. After a while, he said, instead of going downstairs playing games and with the kids and everything like that, go upstairs and you can do your homework. I kind of hated that at first because I really wanted to be with the kids.
Right, because you're having fun.
I was having fun, and getting paid too.
Right.
But the idea, he said, no, go up and do your homework. He said it's, this thing he always said, it's not just looking good, but doing good was important. So he was a person that first helped me. He also helped me get a car to go to college.
Wow, that's awesome. So he was like a mentor to you.
He was a mentor. He was one of the first mentors that, was saying that, you can't go around here. It's the idea you got to put in the work to reach the reward.
Right. It's the only way that you'll get something in return.
Correct.
To be able to pursue what your next step in the line, the
That
next
is
chapter in life.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, so now how has sports impacted your life?
Basketball coupled to my senior year, and then as my senior year was kind of cut from the team, my brother was co-captain when he was there, and it was that great expectation I was going to do the same, but didn't kind of feel you could be fancy with this coach. This coach, you couldn't do anything fancy. I got kicked out of practice a couple of times for laughing, fooling around, and then when I had the fracture, and I fractured both ankles playing football. It was on a weekend, even though I went out for the team. On a weekend, I was playing with the guys and fractured that. I was on crutches for 6 months.
Wow.
So in high school, it's kind of crazy to be on crutches in high school. But so I finished that, and then I went into track and did track for about 2.5 years. And finally, at the hurdles, I placed in the state as one of, I think it was 5th in the state for that year.
Wow.
When I graduated for running hurdles. So, but the idea of that work ethic, particularly in sports and particularly in track, because you're all by yourself and you got to put in the work for it, you got to practice, so there's a couple of things that really made a difference for that. I think a lot of independence from that.
I would think so, especially not having a team, so you didn't have anyone to goof off with because
No.
guess what? You were the person running.
That's right.
You were jumping the hurdles.
That's right.
So it was only you.
Only you. And so you have to be prepared for it. You have to put in the work to get the outcome you're looking for. So that was a challenge, different than the sports game when you played with basketball and football. You have a team. And one of the things that I didn't stay with football was that all my friends, I lived in a project, so all of my friends, Charlotte Terrace, the project, played basketball at Hartford High and Weaver, and in football, they kept saying, when we see you coming, we're going to get you for playing at Buckley.
Yeah.
And so, and then Buckley students were scared. When they had games against, say, Hartford High and Buckley, those guys would talk to them and they were kind of scared. Our coach, the reason I used to get thrown out of practice, that our coach would stick his finger in their chest, telling them that these guys put their pants on the same way you do. He was trying to avoid the racial terms that were used, but he was saying that, and I'd just break out laughing. You know, so get Martin, get out of practice. So it was that kind of thing. But then when I see them start backing off football, I'm saying, I'm not getting killed by you guys because you're scared to block them. I said, no way. So basketball was easy. Track I was on my own. So, yeah.
You were a 3-sport athlete, so you grew up in a different time. What are some of the differences in terms of how schools deals with student athletes? So back when you were in high school to now, what do you think the difference is?
I think there's much more emphasis on going to college. Our coach never talked to us about going on to school and college and things like that. Certain kids did, but I remember he used to ask me, the basketball coach, if you know anybody else on the project that wants to come to Buckley, because in the project, particularly about this whole thing, in the project, they gerrymandered, they redistricted the project. There used to be a portion of the project going to Buckley, and there was only one street. And we happened to live on that one street, and we didn't really want to go to Buckley. As a matter of fact, just to give you this incident, that we left Bachelor Elementary School.
Yeah.
And my brother was 2 years ahead of me, and so every one of those students went to Buckley. His records were sent to Hartford High.
Because he was going to Hartford High?
No.
Wow.
No.
So they just sent them?
Sent his records.
Okay.
He was the only person of color in the school at the time, and his records went to Hartford High, and everybody else's records went to Buckley. So
was he like hand-picked in a sense?
Well, I don't know. My mother did this. My mother found out. She said, "Why are you going to Hartford High when all the kids are going to Buckley?" He didn't know. He didn't have any idea. So she went to a politician on the council and City of Hartford and talked to him. He got her the records. She took him to the principal, put him on his desk, and told him, my son's coming here, like every other student that left bachelor school. And yes sir, and he took and that's what we got. We kept saying, it's all right, we'll be glad to go to Hartford High.
Right.
We don't really want to continue this at Buckley, but you know what, it turned out fine. It turned out to be an asset.
Good, that's good.
Turned out to be an asset.
It's nice that you had your mom supporting you guys.
Yeah, she really did, and that act of doing that when clearly was something out of the ordinary for that to happen. And how does one student get sent there, and only one person of color in the class gets sent to a different school than everyone else?
It's not right.
So, and it kind of continued, but I think today, and particularly in the classroom, I think that, back there, you're an athlete, you kind of, what's thing, but I think even though you're an athlete, the requirements today, I think, are a lot more. Even though when I was, teaching at the high school or the elementary level, and we had athletes, I expected more out of them because they are athletes and they're going to have different challenges.
Sure.
And I think back then it was like, okay, athlete, hey, you're just going to go on.
You just play sports.
Well, what was back then is that my brother, they weren't even going to college. They were going to the industrial league. It was Royal Typewriter and things like that. They didn't expect them to go to school now, but some of the other kids, they were going to Trinity and they were going to colleges, but our expectations, you were going to the factory to play basketball with the factories. So there was a different emphasis on academics. And I remember when I had taken 3 years of math, and the fourth year math was a small class for 8 kids maybe, but it was an honors class. So I went to my counselor and I said, I really want to take 4 years of math.
Right.
He said, well, you can't because you've been an academic, you're not in honors, you can't take that subject.
Only if you were honors, you were allowed to take math.
That honor math.
It
was an honor math class.
Okay.
And I said, but I'm really interested in doing it, And he said, well, I can't recommend you to do it, and I can't sign off. So I went to the teacher. I was really, I wanted to, and he said, well, it's going to be a difficult class for you. And I said, I know, but, and I said, I realize that, but I'll do the work. I'll put in the work for it because I really wanted to do it. He said, yeah, I'll take you in.
Nice.
So 𝐘𝐨𝐿𝐢 was his name. And actually, when I finished, and I majored in math, and when I finished school, I worked in Hartford as a math teacher, and I was teaching at Weaver. He was my supervisor.
Wow, look at that.
He was my supervisor. He was the head of the math department for Hartford at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was my supervisor, and he kept saying, yeah,
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle. So it was quite interesting.
That's nice. So you mentioned before that you had a mentor that helped you. You've had two mentors, I would say.
I had, my mom was my biggest mentor first, and then Mr. Paul Littman, and then we also had, when I had to go to Central Connecticut, I didn't have transportation, so I was working Parks and Rec 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
During the summer, some 8 hours sometimes, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day,
Wow.
From different parks. And Paul Littman heard about it. He said, well, how are you going to get to Central? I said, I guess the bus, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to live on campus. And so what he said is that I have somebody you need to talk to. So I talked to a gentleman. He was on the Board of Education, Al Rogers. And so speaking to him, he said, listen, he had this Mustang. And I'm thinking, it was like, this is 68. And Mustang was 65.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, it was convertible. It's a beautiful car. And it's 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
He said, well, how about this car? And I said, I can't afford that, So he said, well, how much can you afford? I said, I'm working during the summer, but I'm just trying to get my money for school, and I don't have enough. He said, can you come up with $300? I said, $300? I said, I can get a loan. I don't have the money, but I can get a loan. I took a loan for $20 a month
Mm-hmm.
from Society for Saving to pay for the car. He gave me the car for $300.
Wow.
And I was like the biggest guy on campus with a Mustang convertible.
A 3-year-old one.
3-year-old car for $300.
Wow.
So it was like incredible.
That's nice.
So he was another mentor, and there were people along the way. I mean, there was Champa, who was he was an English teacher at Buckley High School.
Mm-hmm.
Went out of his way to try to help me to get through. So there were some people who stepped out,
And helped you to really pursue where you are now today. Because
Yeah.
without those people, it's hard for people to get through high school.
You need guidance. They always say you need somebody who, who's in the field or direction you want to go, who's been successful there, someone who's approaching it as a colleague, someone who's there, and someone who's been successful in that field. So along the way, I had all of those take place as I started education. So,
Yeah.
and I had no desire when I left high school to go into education. I wanted to go into engineering, and then I wanted to go into industry as an entrepreneur and make all this money, and I was going to, buy all these luxuries and things. But it changed when I got into education. So
Yeah, it does, and it molds you into a totally different person.
it did. It did.
So when you were a principal in Hartford, you hired all kinds of personnel.
Yes.
What should a principal be looking for in a coach?
In a coach, you're looking for someone who's passionate about what they do, and that's one of the things that is kind of very important, is that you're looking for someone who wants to build personalities, and not, personalities along with the academics, who's connected to academics, but someone who cares about the future of that student they're working with. And that's something you don't also often find sometimes. You find people who can throw out a basketball and throw out this, but teaching kids and also understanding them and being connected to them is important. And you don't see that all the time, in the sense of a connection to their personal life.
Right.
Making sure that they're staying out of trouble. A project, we had plenty of trouble around us all the time.
Sure.
I could have chose that any day of the week, but the idea is that I was connected to people, PAL for boxing, police department, so they told you, your hands are legal, and it wasn't really legal. Your hands are legal, and you got to stay out of trouble because all the police officers know you. So it was a number of things that make a difference, and I think in a coach, that coach has to feel that, and also not just the idea of playing sports for me, so I can win, but advancing your life so that you have a future. I think that's a key one.
That's super important.
Yeah.
Should they have a plan of support for their teams, academics? Do you think that should be part of the coach's job, or?
I found coaches trying to find exemptions rather than expectations for them, and then they'll find exemptions like, he's a ball player, give him a break. Teachers, come on now, you can't fail him. I mean, I saw that all the time. You can't fail him because we got
need
championship
him.
going up, and And so they got, they got exceptions and not expectations.
Right.
And now I think there's more expectations that, if you want to be successful in life, sports is just a part of it. It is not the end of it. It's just the beginning of an opportunity to open doors for you. I mean, you look at the statistics for people who go into the NBA, the million people who try, the very few who get in. It's very competitive and it requires a lot. And I think at certain times, John Thompson was always, I admired him because he graduated students. He didn't just have he had a successful basketball team, but he was known for his students getting an education.
Sure.
That's what you look for.
That's important.
That's the kind of coach you want to have.
Right, that's going to support them during their high school career, not only as a player, but also as an academic student.
And also for their lifeline, because, if they get injured, what do you have to fall back on? He made sure that they had something to fall back on, so they had an education.
Right.
So if something happened to them, they still had a way of sustaining their life and succeeding.
Sure.
So that was important.
I think that brings us into the next thing, next question. So, are all students college material? I know we talked about this before. If not, what can they do as a career option?
They have a number of careers. I had an opportunity during my working career to go into vocational schools. It was an application for administrator in a vocational school. At that time, I had a vocational school in Hartford. It was called Workplaces, and I was running the school. And we had centers of banking, auto mechanic. We had nursing programs. We had a number of programs, and the kids had a half a day in school and a half a day in industry.
Right.
And it worked out really well. But I remember when I left that, and I was doing it was the Youth Employment Economic Development. So I was assistant director for that at the Board of Education.
Okay.
So, and I was in charge of home economics and industrial arts, and then at the three high schools and then the middle schools, right? And I remember some of the things they were saying, like, hey, you should have taken some skills and some industrial skills, and I like electronics. I wish I had, but that's a backup for having it. So I think that having those extra things truly make a difference in the long run. So it's a mixture of it.
Like sports medicine, if they really wanted to pursue something still in that same realm of sports, like
they do.
Student athletes can then maybe become an athletic director or come.
Oh, there's
coaches.
tremendous. The idea of even at that point coaching. Look at what's happening now. A lot of broadcasting going into broadcasting. There's all kinds of opportunities, for sports industry, sports security. I mean, there's a number of things that are available today that didn't seem available for athletes. They were someone else who wasn't an athlete.
Right.
But now they realize having the expertise of being an athlete and that combination is a very it's a benefit, an extreme
Absolutely,
benefit.
yeah. Like you said, for broadcasting, you have the knowledge already of the sport, so now you
Who
can
better prepared than someone who plays? And then there wasn't opportunities for coaching, for players to be coaches.
Right.
In all sports at that time when I was coming up, you saw a person of color as of course, we weren't intelligent enough to be quarterbacks. Supposedly, we weren't intelligent to be captains of coaches and NBA and stuff like that. So that's all new. And one of the things about this, when they come up with something about the first, black coach or the first what's name, most people are celebrating. I'm kind of insulted because it's not a celebration. It's an indication of how stagnant and how persistent racism was, that that it's just happening now.
that people didn't have those opportunities.
Yeah, they didn't have it.
People of color were never given that chance.
Right. So I mean, so you're saying, well, it's a great celebration. We're celebrating the first West End. No, for 400 years, I mean, it should have been that. This should have been happening. We don't need a celebration. We need to really, really make sure that's happening everywhere.
More and more.
More and more,
Not
yeah.
just celebrating the one.
That's right, the one who gets in, and so yeah. There's sports really opens your eyes to a lot of things, and not just competition. There's another sport, and it's not part of the West End, but we have the Legos at the elementary level, and they have it robotics.
Robotics, of course.
Robotics
That's
here, right?
huge. We
Yeah.
have a huge robotics.
Yeah, when I went to the first one, we do Legos before robotics
Right,
at the
yeah.
elementary level, right? And the discipline, the sports things there, and they have a word called cooperation.
Yes.
And
yes.
not just a point of, you know.
That's part of their score. So you get, you know, the elements that go in. Yes, you build the robot, you compete. But are you a good team member?
That's right.
Do you support each other?
Right.
Are you walking around talking to other people?
Right.
So your sportsmanship counts just as much as your competition.
Right.
So that should be like in sports.
We had the first, first STEAM school in Hartford at Rawson. We started there, yeah. So we started the first STEAM, and it was really just eye-opening with the robotics when we got into it. And and then the Legos, the junior Legos, but coming to Hartford High to see a competition.
It's huge.
Oh, it was just like incredible. I'm saying, our kids need to be this. I mean, the technicians, the things that are going on there.
And it's a variety of kids. It's not just one race.
No.
It is everyone.
Oh, it was just so incredible.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love
Me
robotics.
too.
Yeah, it's great.
I
know I can't actually build the robot. I mean, maybe I could if I tried.
I think you probably could.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But the way that these kids spend every single day after school building hours and hours and hours.
When I went to the competition and I saw it, I just kept saying, man, you know, we got to do some more work at the elementary level to get these kids, because they were saying they would have difficulties getting the kids to participate at the high school level.
Yeah.
And it's because they're not exposed to it at the elementary level.
Right.
And you know, when we went to some of the competitions, and we went to, I think out of the 4 competitions we went to for Legos, we took at least a trophy home. But it was for the cooperation,
which is great.
Which was the thing. And when our kids could explain how they worked together, they cried together when someone didn't do well. We supported each other, and they were really kind of amazing. And if you look at the pictures, that again, it was like one team of color, and that was in a sea of ocean. A sea of sand. It was just incredible. The kids were like culturally shocked,
right?
Because they don't see it.
It's different.
And we were just amazed to be there. People were saying, where you guys from? We're from Hartford.
Right, right.
You go, Hartford? I said, yeah.
You have a robotics team?
Yeah, robotics. yeah, robotics. I mean, your kids do Lego, and they sponsored us the first year to get in.
So that's amazing.
They sponsored us. They gave us, we bought the robots and everything else, and the Legos for Lego stuff, and they sponsored us, got us started because we're having difficulty getting in from our district.
Right.
We're having difficulty, and by the time they paid for us to get in first.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we could come in and participate, and came out. But you know what's amazing? So when we were competing is that, a lot of their teams had technical people. They had engineers helping the kids.
That's what it is now. That's what they have at our school. So this is our sports team here, is our robotics team, because we don't have sports. So they have a bunch of mentors from Pratt and Whitney, from Stanley Black & Decker.
Right.
But it takes time to build that.
Yeah, we didn't have any of that. We go to competitions, and we were looking, and when they sit down, they do their group. Here's a volunteer who's an engineer from such and such. So we had community people. I didn't have any scientific, engineers behind, and so we were like sending out invitations for people to help us.
Right.
But we realized that, and I was like, wow. What a difference.
Right, it does. It helps, especially with their knowledge.
Oh, God, yeah. Knowledge.
Well, that also, so think about it too now, if you had parents involved. What do you think it is to get parents involved with student athletes?
That was think about it, yeah. And when we went to places, you had the pictures, is that we had maybe, 4 or 5 parents go up at most. And theirs, I mean, every team had it seemed like every student had a parent there. So that's nothing. And we see it we not only see it in Napa, you go to an average park in the city, in Hartford, and you see the kids by themselves. You go to parks outside it, and I'm in West Hartford also, and you see gobs of parents there, supporting a game or something of that nature. So, I don't know, sometimes getting parents involved to come out and be a part, like we had to solicit people to come out and be a part of it. You know, say, listen, our kids are competing. Well, I got to do this on Saturday. I got to do that. I got to do this. I got to shopping. Only time I have off, and I understood that. But we still got to beef up. Send somebody.
Right.
You know, sister,
Right.
older sister, brother, somebody.
Cousin.
Yeah,
Grandma,
somebody out there
yeah.
to help them out and show the support for it. You know, I think that's the key one. And
It's just keep on talking.
yeah, we have to keep on. We have to expose more. You know, and that's the thing about it. You know, we had to do Lego demonstrations for our parents at nighttime so they can see
Right.
what we do. You know,
And they're not working.
Yeah, they're not working.
So you have to really go around parent schedules, and especially for athletes, and having parents know about scholarships and knowing about applying for, you know, if you
And
want
that's
to
what
play in
we
college.
do with the
Yeah.
Sons of Thunder is to take that step out, to get out and to reach students where they are, you know, and have them.
Okay. So because many of our student athletes come from having like a lot of obstacles, what do you think there is for support for somebody that might have mental illnesses or anything in that sense?
Well, you know, we constantly look at resources at the school, but sometimes it's even more than that. You know, when you have those kind of things, you really need someone who's an agent for you, kind of looking over and kind of helping you. And there were some schools. Sometimes it was just a classroom teacher who stepped out beyond their you know their dimension of a classroom teacher and got involved. And I know that I had teachers who took kids home, and they don't do it nowadays, but
Right.
they took kids home and among their families and helped them in school. And I think you have that when you have that kind of, you know, mental stuff. There's agencies, but our parents don't know about them. They really don't have the information about that.
And I think where there's more of like a fear of asking for help, especially if it
Yeah.
has any mental concerns or any sort of issues, if you have less than.
Yeah, and it was always the things that, you know, no parent wants those old little small yellow bus pulling up to the house.
Right.
You know, different from the other kids, you know, and then the kids say, oh, you ride that little bus,
Right.
you know, going home.
Right.
Kids make fun of that kind of stuff. So, and I've had kids who you know, don't want to ride that. They said, even though they have, you know, door-to-door service,
Right.
they want to get on the regular bus with
Right.
with the kids who are regularly picked up. And we have to be conscious of that, you know, the image that it gives when you start separating and stuff like that. You know, it's different when you have physical obstacles, but just the mental obstacles, sometimes you can work around them in a normal environment.
Right.
And that's where we got to make them feel more comfortable about doing that. And that's
It's a
that's
challenge.
something our school personnel and departments have to really work at, and we don't do a good job of it. The stigma sometimes of getting help
Right.
is fearful, you know, of going to see it. I mean, even as an adult, I mean, you know, people say, hey, you know, do you see a kind of psychiatrist on a regular basis or psych to talk to them? No, don't do that. No, not me.
Right, right.
But privately, I would like to, but on the side, you know, talking to somebody. And then it's a trust factor, you know.
Sure.
We grew up in a situation, you keep things kind of low-key, you know, low-key about what things going on. And, you know, I came from a household where, you know, father and mother separated early, and I had to seek myself, not myself, my mother did.
Right.
And services for me because I was having adjustments problems. And as a matter of fact, I was having adjustments problems with male teachers, first of all. And the first male teacher I had, I repeated. I mean, he could ask me to stand up, I'd sit down. You could tell me to sit down, I'd stand up. I did nothing that whole year. Didn't understand why I didn't get passed. But it was absolutely nothing, and I didn't understand it. So finally, and all the time as I was going through school, I kept thinking, I repeated a grade because I guess I didn't know what I was doing. And it really wasn't that at all. And finally, I got eureka. It hit me. It's like in the 8th grade what actually took place, and I had no really physical consciousness of it. I remember, you know, going to these doctors playing with, you know, everybody leaves the room.
Right, right.
And they let you play, and there's a dark window there, dark mirror there.
As they're viewing on
As
what's
they're view-
actually happening.
What I was doing, how I was associating things like that, but it had its toll, and it was really a mental issue at that point. So father and I, later on, we actually bought a duplex together, and I lived there for a while. But the consciousness of keep asking, how come you never came by? How
Right.
come you didn't do this, and how come, we only saw you on holidays, Easter. And it was so bad with me is that I remember cutting up an Easter suit. So it was really something I just couldn't overcome by myself.
Having a holiday father is not a real father.
Yeah, and even as an adult, as I addressed it, with him, he was like, all of a sudden, such whatever. It really never fulfilled the need that was there to fulfill. But at least I understood what had happened. I didn't understand what was going on at the time.
Right.
In third grade, that I was going through that. I didn't understand what was going on. I just thought that I was just, kids made fun. Well, you dumb, you stayed back. I'm thinking, well, maybe I was. I don't know. I don't know, but going through the educational realm and, getting a doctor's degree, that made a difference in finishing doctoral school. Like, I kept thinking, wow, I could do this? I could never had the
ability to believe in yourself.
Yeah, to believe that I was actually, capable of doing it until you go through, even though you went undergrad, you go graduate, doctoral program. I kept thinking, I'm determined. One thing about me is that, you say no, I'm going there.
I'm the same way.
When the custodian, when that counselor said no, I'm going there. I'm taking it. I'm sorry. I'm going. When other people tell you no, what I got is just prove that I can do it. So that's what the drive was.
Right.
And that's what drives some people, a lot of people at this point now. Some people crumble under it though. And unfortunately, they just don't believe in themselves at all. And I just believed that if I worked hard enough, it would happen. So just did extra work. There was nights. It was so funny. My mom's with math, right? I thought she knew math. I'm doing calculus, trig, and everything in the math class, right? So my mother always had a thing, you put homework on the table at night and before you go to bed. And if you didn't do it, she'd wake you up to make sure it was done.
Right.
But I thought, in her checking it, she actually knew what she was doing. So high school, she was still checking it. So I go to class, I raise my hand. Who has the question? The answer. I got it right there. I go to the board, it's wrong. So I'm thinking, dang, my mother messed up.
Right.
I thought she knew what she was doing. She didn't. She just made sure it was completed.
For completion.
That's what it was. And I was thinking she, checked with accuracy, and then I realized, and I'm going like, but here's the dumb thing, the dumb of it the whole year. It was June, and we're finishing that class with 8 kids in there. And I know 2 kids in that class. I know, they kept getting everything right. I've been thinking, there's something wrong with, how did they get it right? I know they don't know it, right?
Right.
So I go to the board, they're making fun, because making fun when I get it wrong. Oh, yeah,
Here he goes again.
Yeah, he goes. But the teacher was good about it, showed me where I made mistakes. I go home next time, study with her. And sometimes I was spending 2 hours a night just doing math.
Wow.
Just doing math.
Not even all your other subjects.
Not the other subjects, just doing math, because here I'm in this honors class. He said it was going to be a struggle. I do not want to fail.
Right.
I want to get through there. I want to do well. So I was spending that kind of time. So at the end of the year, I'm talking to one of the kids, He said, yeah, we study together every night. I go, what?
Oh, yeah. A study group.
They had everybody else in the class studied together. I was like, no wonder you got the right answer every time you go to the board.
You guys all were a team.
They were a team the whole time. I was like, wow. That was like,
eye-opening.
That was like, oh, wow. That was the end of June. I'm going like, so all along, all the year, they were studying together, and they spread the same answers to each other.
Right, so then they'd say, you do question 1, I'll do question 2, I'll do 3.
Yeah, so if they call on any one of them, they got it right because they all did it together.
Team, the teamwork.
Yeah.
So is there enough being done to help families understand the financial process in attending college, do you think? And if not, what do you think we should do to help them?
Well, I don't think there's enough. I think that, knowing and I remember I got something somebody gave me for my daughter when she was going they gave me 100 grants and applications for students of color.
Right.
And I remember, looking through these, and she actually was part of a program. She went to Farmington High School with a Project Concern and exchange.
That's what it was called back then.
Yeah,
yes.
Project Concern. So she went there. She got the minority scholarship to go to New London Women's College down there on a scholarship.
Connecticut College.
Connecticut College, yeah, for women. It was for women at the time,
Okay.
though. When she got it, she got a scholarship from Farmington, but being a person of color in Farmington.
It helps to your advantage.
I was like, wow. And so she was recipient of that, and then she went on from there. They helped her. They were so good is that they helped her to go to grad school, and she was going to go to Columbia. And they said, nah, you don't want to go there. So they said, we have contact. She got into Harvard.
Wow.
And graduated from Harvard because they helped her to get in.
Amazing.
So, I mean, it's just that kind
There
of
are, it just kind of like, if you fall into that category, or if someone wants to help you.
I know, that's the thing about it. And I credit the thing about math. I was failing math in 6th grade. I hated it. I really hated it. I was not doing well. And I think people who really fail math, it's not just because of the students, it's the way it's taught.
I agree.
The way it's taught, and it's not taught in a way that you know that there's a variety of ways to get the answer. They say, no, if the teacher does it this way, everybody has to do it this way. I don't care if your mother said do it this way,
Right.
you do it this way. No, there's a variety. There's many sources and many ways to get to the right answer. And if you teach that, kids will feel much more confident. So I don't blame students as much as I blame instructors not being flexible enough.
I think now with like the Common Core, especially I have kids and they're learning math. It's different for us. If we were to do their math now,
I know.
it's not the same, but they're thinking more of like it in a logical way.
That's what it should
You know,
be.
and I think that
taught.
that's easier. And what you say about math, people that fail math, I think that math is probably one of the hardest subjects because you have to put such a process into it.
Prerequisites.
And if you don't do that, then you're not going to get to the final answer. So people that make it through math and do well, those are kids that are going to succeed because they are having obstacles hit them every day and they push through it. The resilience.
And you have to find alternatives to get through it, I remember taking a test, and I was leaving education time. I thought I wanted to get out of education, but I really knew this. It kind of inspired me. You feel like you don't get rewarded for anything in education you do.
Right.
I mean, you work hard, you don't get rewarded. It doesn't feel like people appreciate it. So I was transitioning, and I said, I'm going into industry, and I'm going to make some money in industry, because I wasn't making money. And when I started teaching, it was $7,900 a year.
And now it's $70,000 a year.
Yeah. So I was there, and I applied for Mass Mutual, and I went to New York. It was AT&T or something in New York, and I was taking this test, a logic test, and it had a flow chart, and it was for programming, and so I was going through it, and it had like 11 steps, and I had 13. And I couldn't get it down to 11, and I knew this was it. It was the final. It was in the afternoon, so I had all the tests in the daytime. Afternoon was the final one to take, and I said, I can't get it.
Right.
But it's the point of, again, is that the alternatives, And then I asked for it. When I finished, I said, can you just show me, because I need to know.
Yeah.
What it's. He said, well, you could have combined these two together, and that would have cut down from 13 to 11. I go, okay, all right, well, that's good. At least I understand it. I didn't get it, but at least I understood it. But the same thing with math is that, in teaching that, you have to teach them there's alternate ways. I mean, you can learn it this way by addition. You can learn it by multiplication. You can do a different way by combining things together. And I think that's the key that is not taught.
Right.
And they just tell you, here's 1, 2 you have to use, and no, that's not true.
There's more methods.
There's more methods and prerequisites too.
For sure. How often should students visit with their guidance counselor in preparation for college? Are there enough guidance counselors in our schools, and are they being utilized in the most efficient way?
Well, my experience, the time I went through, and even when I was at Weaver, there was a couple of students who got programs to go to Wesleyan for arts during the summer. And so I found this kid doodling in my classroom, drawing, in the math class. So I looked at it and said, hey, listen, you have to put that away. I got the math class. And so but then I called him back and said, who's working with your drawing?
Right.
He said, no. And I said, do you have more at home? He said, yeah. I said, bring him in. So bring him in, and I went to the counselor, and I spoke to the counselor, and they weren't pretty much interested. But then I called Wesley. They gave me a number to call, Joan Hickey at Wesley, and I called her up, and she said, Hartford has had 6 scholarships a year during the summer. No one's used them.
The money's just sitting there.
Yeah. So she said, you have a student? I said, yeah. She said, well, bring him down. So I got talked to his mom. I brought him down. He got in during the summer. Then another student got in during the summer. But what was happening with the counseling is that they were working with a population of, I don't know, a very small number of students who were going on to college, and the rest of the students didn't get any service. So these are the ones that were going to 4-year colleges. They were working with them, getting done. But there were a number of kids who could have gone to 2-year schools, could have gone to community schools, and they weren't getting any assistance at all. And I think we have to address that or vocational references and referrals, you know. My brother-in-law, former brother-in-law, went to Hartford Technical School, right? He worked for a company, and he was sent to China and to work over there, and then something happened over there that they were going to reduce the staffing, and he opened up his own company. He's
Smart.
Yeah, he's in China. He's here now, but he has over $6 million company that he runs in China. He said he had to sell one of the companies because his partners were selling stuff on the side.
You gotta be careful. People are sneaky.
Yeah, his partners. He said they were selling what he was doing. In manufacturing, they were supposed to be partners, but they were doing side deals. So he had to sell it. They put him in a situation. He either had to sell the company, or he was going to go bankrupt with them.
Right.
So he sold it and bought it and started another company. But amazing, you know, with the context that you talk about it. But you know, we have to reach out. I mean, counseling for most of my life has not been a very positive thing. And even when I went to Central and undergrad, you know, I signed off with a counselor. I got my book. I almost blew it. I got the admissions book, and I signed off every time for classes by myself.
Right.
And unfortunately, I messed up because I didn't get accepted into the department. And I missed that in the book. And then I was a junior, right? And they said, you know, did you get into the department?
You're like, don't I already? I have the book.
Taking math courses already. No, you have to get accepted into the department. I go, what? Accepted?
The fine line right at the bottom.
Yeah, it was a fine line. So I had to go for that, and fortunately enough, I got, you know, they said fine, they accepted me into it, but I was intimidated going to a counselor based on the treatment I had received before.
So it throws you off. So
it threw me off.
In high school, you didn't get treated right.
Nope.
Someone wanted you to just become an
auto
mechanic.
Yeah.
Just you walking in the door.
Right.
No, and now that shuts the door for you, and you're the kind of person that likes to have doors open for you. Like,
That's right.
you're going to work for it, and now you're in college, and you're not going to go see your guidance counselor. So it needs to be a place where kids feel welcomed.
Yeah, feel not just welcome, but feel that they're going to be helped, genuinely helped.
Supported.
Yeah, you know, and there were, you know, and even in Central, there were a number of charges and stuff.
It happened to me too.
Yeah, we had to bring charges up. We finally, teachers made comments that, I mean, the reason the post office wasn't efficient is that they had too many persons of color working there. I mean, all kinds of stuff. The math department was strict, you know, they had some things going on too in there that you didn't want to speak out against. If you spoke out against a student, you figured like you might get in trouble, not even graduate.
Right.
So there were a number of things going on, but they have to extend. We have to find avenues that resources not only in the school but outside of the school, that you know that, like you said, you have volunteer people coming in.
Yeah.
They are probably more helpful sometimes because they have the experience of.
It's the industry.
The industry.
We need that.
You need that in the school, and we had that when I had workplaces. We had industry coming in, working with the students, talking to them about. I mean, I had a kid when I was doing this who was offered a job at Pratt & Whitney, leaving high school, and he asked me, should I go to college or go to industry? I'm saying, well, listen, why don't you talk to Pratt and Whitney and see if they'll
And
pay for
find
your
out.
college?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
And they did.
Yeah, he started off making more money than I was making as the
It
administrator.
happens. I have many students that probably make more than me right now.
Yeah,
You know,
but it was so good.
they needed the tools, and now they took those tools and they figured it out.
Yeah. So that was the difference of it. So there's a lot, you know, there's a lot out there, and we have to keep doing things, and that's why I'm involved with this program, because it reaches, you know, it tries to reach students and help them, and we
Yeah.
need more.
Absolutely. This is the second year doing the partnership of Sons of Thunder, and then it's a civic engagement with the students, and so now they're learning how to edit, they're learning how to make
good,
graphics, you know,
good.
so there's always different elements that we're introducing,
Yeah.
because you have to be the all-around person,
You do.
and
you
also a
do.
professional.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
good that the kids are getting this opportunity to do it, because it's happening everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing about it. If we're not doing it, I mean, you see the other schools are doing it all over the country,
Sure.
and our kids are being left behind in these opportunities unless we get exposure to them.
Absolutely.
So it's key.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity just to, you know, give a voice on it. You know, I'm glad that I was selected to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Mr. Martin, or excuse me, Dr. Martin.
Yes.
We, for joining us for our third podcast, and so we're signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.